Ever felt like you were facing an impossible wall in your life? A challenge so big it seemed like it could never be overcome? Today we're looking into a story from history, Bible, that's all about facing giant walls, both literal and figurative. It's the story of the spies in Jericho, but more importantly, it's the story of a forgotten hero, a woman named Rahab, whose incredible act of faith changed the course of a nation. Put yourself in the shoes of one of two men sent on a secret mission. Your people, the Israelites, have been wandering in the wilderness for 40 years. Now, you're finally on the brink of entering the Promised Land. But there's a major obstacle, the city of Jericho. It's a fortress, with massive walls that seem to touch the sky. Your leader, Joshua, has sent you to scout the city, to understand its strengths and weaknesses. The success of your entire nation rests on your shoulders. No pressure, right? So, you sneak into this heavily guarded city. Every shadow looks like an enemy soldier. Every corner you turn could be a trap. The tension is thick enough to cut with a knife. You need a place to hide, to gather information without being seen. Where do you go? You find your way to a house built right into the city wall, the home of a woman named Rahab. Now, let's pause here and think about Rahab. In her society, she was an outcast. Her profession placed her on the very margins. She was likely overlooked, underestimated, and judged by everyone who walked past her door. But God sees what people don't. He looks past the labels, past the reputation, and sees the heart. And in Rahab's heart, he saw something extraordinary brewing: faith. The king of Jericho gets word that Israelite spies are in the city. His soldiers are immediately dispatched, and they head straight for Rahab's house. This is the moment of truth. Rahab is caught between a rock and a hard place. On one side, you have the king of her own city, a man with the power of life and death. If she helps the spies, she's a traitor, and the punishment for treason is always severe. On the other side, you have two foreign strangers, representatives of a people and a god she has only heard about. Think about the fear she must have felt. The soldiers are banging on her door. The fate of these two men and her own hangs in the balance. What would most people do? They'd probably give up the spies in a heartbeat to save their own skin. It's the logical, self-preservation choice. But Rahab doesn't do the logical thing. She does the faithful thing. She hides the men on her roof under stalks of flax, and then coolly faces the king's soldiers. She tells them, yes, the men were here, but they left just before the city gate closed for the night. If you hurry, you can probably catch them. It's a bold lie, a risky move that could cost her everything. The soldiers believe her and rush out of the city in pursuit. Once the coast is clear, she goes up to the roof and has one of the most remarkable conversations in the entire Bible. She tells the spies, "I know that the Lord has given you this land and that a great fear of you has fallen on us." She continues, "We have heard how the Lord dried up the water of the Red Sea for you when you came out of Egypt, and what you did to the two kings of the Amorites. For the Lord your God is God in heaven above and on the earth below." This is staggering. Rahab, a woman living in a pagan city, has more faith than many of the Israelites who had seen God's miracles firsthand. She had only heard the stories, the rumors of God's power. But for her, hearing was believing. She connected the dots and understood that the God of Israel was the one true God, the ultimate authority over everything. Her faith wasn't based on sight, it was based on hearing the truth and accepting it into her heart. This is our first powerful lesson. How often do we need a sign? We say, "God, if you just show me a miracle, then I'll believe. If you just fix this problem, then I'll trust you." Rahab teaches us that true faith doesn't always need a spectacle. Sometimes it is about hearing the truth of God's power and promises and choosing to stand on that truth, even when our circumstances scream the opposite. Recognizing their only hope lies with this courageous woman, the spies make a pact with her. Rahab says, "Swear to me by the Lord that you will show kindness to my family, because I have shown kindness to you." She asks them to save her and her entire family when the Israelite army comes to conquer the city. The spies agree. They tell her to tie a scarlet cord in her window. This cord would be the sign. When the army sees it, they will know to pass over her house and spare everyone inside. It's a symbol of her faith and their covenant. This scarlet cord is such a powerful image. It's a thin thread of hope hanging against a massive wall of impending doom. For Rahab, it represented her salvation. For us today, it can be seen as a beautiful parallel to the salvation we have through Jesus. Just as that scarlet cord marked Rahab's house for deliverance, the sacrifice of Christ marks those who believe in him for eternal salvation. It's a public declaration of where our allegiance lies. After making the deal, Rahab helps the spies escape. She lets them down by a rope through her window, since her house was part of the city wall. Her quick thinking and courage not only saved their lives, but also secured the future of her own family. The spies return to Joshua with a renewed sense of confidence. Their report is completely different from the one given by the previous generation of spies 40 years earlier. That first group saw giants and felt like grasshoppers. They focused on the obstacles, but these two spies, having encountered the faith of Rahab, came back with a different perspective. They said, "The Lord has surely given the whole land into our hands. All the people are melting in fear because of us." What changed? They met someone on the inside, an outcast, who had more faith than they did. Rahab's confidence in their God bolstered their own. It was a divine appointment that turned their fear into faith. This is another key lesson. Your faith can be a catalyst for someone else's courage. You never know who is watching you. Your choice to trust God in a difficult situation, to act with integrity when it's hard, can be the very thing that inspires someone else to take their own step of faith. Rahab, the outsider, became an inspiration for the insiders. So, when the time came, the Israelites marched around Jericho for 7 days. The walls fell, and the city was conquered. And just as they promised, the spies went directly to Rahab's house. They saw the scarlet cord and brought her, her father, her mother, her brothers, and all who belonged to her, out to safety. Rahab's story doesn't end there. She doesn't just get saved and then disappear from history. The Bible tells us she lived among the Israelites. She married an Israelite man named Salmon. And here's the most amazing part. Rahab, the former outcast from Jericho, becomes the great-great-grandmother of King David. And astoundingly, she is listed in the genealogy of Jesus Christ himself in the book of Matthew. Think about the magnitude of that. A woman with a questionable past from an enemy city is not only saved, but is grafted into the very lineage of the Messiah. This is the radical grace of God on full display. It's a message that screams, your past does not define your future. Where you come from does not determine where you are going. God, as plan of redemption, is big enough to include anyone and everyone who turns to him in faith. So what can we take away from Rahab's heroic story for our lives today? First, have the courage to act on your faith. Faith isn't just a feeling or a belief. It's an action. Rahab heard, she believed, and she acted. She risked everything. What scarlet cord is God asking you to hang in your window today? What visible, tangible step of faith is he calling you to take? Maybe it's starting a conversation, forgiving someone, or stepping out into a new calling. Second, never underestimate your influence. Rahab probably never saw herself as a world changer. She was just trying to survive. But her one act of faith had ripple effects through generations. You might feel small or insignificant, but your obedience to God can have an eternal impact that you may never fully see on this side of heaven. Third, embrace God's grace for your past. If you feel defined by your mistakes, look to Rahab. Her story is a testament that God doesn't just forgive, he redeems and repurposes. He takes the broken pieces of our lives and weaves them into a beautiful tapestry of his grace. Your story is not over. Rahab faced a giant wall, but she looked to a bigger God. Her story reminds us that when we face the impossible walls in our own lives, our greatest weapon is faith. A faith that hears God's promises, believes them, and acts on them, no matter the risk. Thank you so much for joining me today. If this story encouraged you, please hit that like button, share it with someone who might need to hear it, and let me know your biggest takeaway in the comments below. What part of Rahab's story inspires you the most? And don't forget to subscribe for more content that dives deep into the powerful stories of faith. Until next time, be courageous and keep the faith.